Hey everyone, Proto here, and this is the second part of my 5-part series that I'm doing that talks about legendary weapons and armor. So in this episode I will be talking about the legendary secondaries. I've already posted legendary primaries, so you can go and check that out. There should be an annotation in the corner right now. Anyway, getting right into it, let's start off with our first weapon, the fusion rifle. So the first thing to know about the fusion rifle is that instead of having a rate of fire bar graph, you have a charge rate since the weapon charges before it shoots. Anyway, a quick summary of how I'm going to talk about these weapons is, first off, I'm not going to talk about the first column because the first column just entails the type of damage a weapon does, and that's not going to change. You either do kinetic damage, which is just the white number plus attack under it. You do purple, which is void damage, which is the number and the little swirl that you see. Arc damage, which is lightning damage. Solar damage, which is fire damage. The second column is going to be talking about the different types of lenses you can choose from, or scopes, except in the case of shotguns, which I will be talking about when I actually get to shotguns. Moving on to our first possible upgrade for the fusion rifle, we have crowd control. Kills with this weapon grant bonus damage for a short time. We don't know if that's only bonus damage for this weapon in particular, or if it's only bonus damage and it doesn't stack. We'll find out when the game comes out. So another two things I want to talk about that will always be the same is upgrade and lock-in. So upgrade works pretty simply where you get an increase in weapon attack damage. Just a straight damage buff, and you will see the buff actually go to the number where you see the void symbol. Lock-in will do the exact same thing, however it will lock in your choices. I'll explain the locking in the choices in a bit, in case you didn't watch the previous episode. So, for actually get the upgrades in the lock-in, you have to have three things. Glimmer, which is your currency. You have to have weapon parts. And on top of that, you have to have a special material. In this case, it's Spirit Bloom. Spirit Bloom can be found on Venus. To find out where your material can be found, hover over the material details section and it will show you the name, where it's commonly found as alongside of it. As for weapon parts and armor parts you'll see for armor upgrades. Those can be gotten from dismantling specific armors and weapons. Moving on to our next choice area, we have rounds. So the first rounds is field wire rounds. They enhance impact, impacts your damage by the way. Relic iron rounds, which considerably improves impact, but fewer rounds can be carried in reserve. Skip rounds, which have a lot of detail going to them, which is they ricochet off surfaces, first off. They let you carry more rounds in reserve, however they get slower weapon handling. So I'm going to stop right here so I can explain weapon handling. Weapon handling, if you didn't realize, doesn't have its own bar graph. However, thinking about how weapon handling was explained in other weapons, for example how it's talking about slower or faster weapon handling, I have making an assumption that it's talking about how much sway you get with the weapon. Seeing as if your weapon is heavier, it makes sense that your handling is worse because it goes to hold it. It's hard to hold up in place. So I'm not sure about this and don't hold me to it, but it most likely has something to do with sway when it comes to handling. That's all there is for rounds, and keep in mind rounds and sights you have to choose between them. You can't have more than one. However, you can switch freely, just as you'd be able to switch your skills around freely. Moving on to your second ability that you unlock with this weapon for a possible upgrade, we have Cascade. Cascade, what it does is melee increases your reload speed for the weapon for a short time. So here it specifically says that the reload speed is increased for this weapon after doing melee kills, so it doesn't apply to other weapons. But as we saw earlier, it didn't really specify that the damage bonus is only for this weapon. So that leads me to believe that it can be possibly for other weapons. And then we have lock-in, which will lock in your previous choices so you can no longer change around your scopes and you can no longer change around your rounds. Moving on to our next weapon, we have the Comedian, which is a legendary shotgun. So like I was saying earlier, the shotguns don't follow the same routine for the second column. Instead of having the lenses, they'll have something different. So in this case, we have rounds. So to start off with, I'm going to talk, the first two are pretty similar to the fusion rifle. So field wire rounds, which enhance impact, which is more damage. Then we have relic iron rounds, which lets you carry more in reserve. It lets fewer in reserve, but more damage. Oversized rounds, stagger targets, leave them reeling, and it makes it harder to handle. So again, I think that would have to do more sway. Also, the staggering targets, I'm guessing that would mean they'd flinch more when they get hit. If you watch the previous episode, again, you'll see that I was talking about unflinching, which makes it less flinch when you get hit. When you get hit hard especially. So here, this would make them flinch even more. Moving on to our first upgrade, we got Final Round. So Borderlands reference, it's like Money Shot, but not as strong, probably. Then we get Upgrade, and if you look here at Upgrade, you see Helium Filaments. So like I was saying, the upgrade, you don't always find the exact same thing. So like, for example, Helium Filaments are commonly found on the ruins of the moon. And then you'd also have to add weapon parts. Moving on to our next column, we get Ballistics. So the first one, Aggressive Ballistics, more predictable recoil, enhanced impact. Less recoil, a penalty to impact. And that's for soft ballistics. And Field Choke is more range and impact, but increased recoil. So to quickly explain each of them, so for recoil is pretty obvious when you shoot that big kick that you get. Range is the damage that you'll get at further ranges. So the weapon's only useful at a certain range, and for example, shotguns are close range weapons. Impact is damage. So if you look at Aggressive Ballistics, it said that it has more predictable recoil. What that means is that the recoil is not going to be all over the place. Like your gun's not going to fly to like the top left corner one time and then the bottom right or bottom left the other time. It's going to be a recoil that you'll get used to while you're using the weapon, and it's going to be pretty easy to control. Moving on to our next upgrade, we get Reactive Reload. Reloading this weapon grants a damage bonus for a short time. I think that if you were able to get quick enough reloading, you'd actually be able to chain that and stack it up if they were allowing you to stack up. Next, moving on to our last weapon, we have the Sniper Rifle. So the Sniper Rifle has the scopes again, so we have longer range scopes, we have shorter range scopes, and then we have a scope that's kind of in the middle. It's not as long as our longest range, but it's still long ranged. So our first upgrade that we have for this sniper is Crowd Control. Kills this weapon grant bonus damage for a short time, sorry. And then we have Upgrade again, and we have Lock-In. So now we have Tactical Magazines. An oversized magazine, difficult to reload. An oversized magazine, heavy and sluggish, and it slows weapon handling. Again, weapon handling slowing has something to do with sway. I can't really be too specific on it since we don't have a bar graph, and we don't have a little description where the bar graph would be if we hovered over it. And we have Pack Mag, an oversized mag that throws off weapon balance, worsening recoil. Pretty self-explanatory, low stability, but you get magazine size increase. So all of them essentially are increasing your magazine size, and they're doing something to your recoil or your handling. Our next upgrade is Firefly. Precision kills with this weapon cause the target to explode. I don't know how big the explosion radius will be, how much damage it'll do to surrounding enemies, but you can assume that it's going to be something good. Anyway, that's all I have for legendary special weapons. You can check out legendary primary weapons by clicking on the annotation or going to my channel and actually looking for it. It should be one of the more recent videos, if this one is a recent video. If you're watching this at a later time, it's not going to be as recent. So, stay tuned because I'm going to be doing legendary heavy weapons next, and then following that I will be talking about legendary armors. I believe that is all I have to do for legendaries. Yeah, that's all I have to do. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you want to stay tuned, hitting that subscribe button would help me out and it would help you out. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys later.